What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Connected to the Webb podcast. A little different angle for you today because I have my first duo or pair of guests. So hopefully the audio and video goes as well as I think it's going to be. I've got some fun people here, talk about a very serious concept, but we're also going to try to have some fun. And I was told that they will laugh at my dad jokes, so I think there'll be an easy one there. So today is March 11th. I want to give a shout out to my mother. It is her birthday, Nancy Bowles-Wiley. Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I might not put this out to the public for a week or two, but it'll be cool for her to see that. And she's obviously a big fan of mine. She watches everything. So happy birthday, Mom. Okay, well, obviously I would like you to introduce yourselves first individually, and then we'll talk about your organization, and I'll kind of talk about why we got you guys in here. But I know that you said you don't always introduce yourself as a certain way, but I'm going to start with you. So the light is on you. Who are you, ma'am?
So my name is Amy Ocasio, and I am the co-founder and president of the LIVEFORTHOMAS Foundation, which was founded in memory of my 16-year-old son, Thomas, who died by suicide July 28, 2019, after losing his battle with depression. I also have a daughter, Michaela, who is our vice president. She had just graduated, I believe, about 6 or 7 weeks prior to her son passing away, or her brother passing away. And then I'm also a Mimi to Ezra, who is 4.
Mimi, we have a Mimi.
Is about 1.5.
Awesome. So my mother always said her favorite part about being a grandparent is she can hold them, play with them, be with them, and give them back. Have you experienced that yet?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the fun of it. Yes. And I get to do all the things that they're like, don't do that. And I'm like, oh, that's what Mimis get to do.
Well, that's the other part of it, that you can have grandparent time. So where did Mimi come from? Was that something that your mother was called, or like where'd that come from?
We actually have so many mum-mums on my side of the family that we took mum-mum and Amy and was like, oh, why don't we just do Mimi? And Mimi just works, and here's Mimi.
So my wife and I both come from divorced families, so there's 4 sets of grandparents.
Right.
And so when we are first born 15 years ago, we're like, well, how's this going to work? And then I told my wife something funny. So I had 2 mum-mums at first, and the only way to distinguish them was by their hair color. And the problem with that is that one of them had silver hair and one of them had dark hair. So we had a white mum-mum and a black mum-mum.
Oh my God.
Now, in the late 80s and 90s, that might not have been a big deal. It probably should have been, but it wasn't. We obviously didn't know what that meant, and it was funny until we said something out in public, and someone's like, "What?"
Excuse me?
So I did tell my wife that I don't recommend that. So we've got a Mimi, a mum-mum, Meemaw, 2 Meemaws, all kind of stuff. So congratulations on being a Mimi. Now, you definitely just forgot to say something that you told me you don't say. So we can't get to our second guest until you double back a little bit, because you have some letters in front of your name that are special.
I do. So I'm actually a doctor. I have my doctorate in prevention science, and my focus is suicide prevention. And I'm also a therapist. So Thomas passed away in my last year of my master's program for clinical mental health counseling. And then I realized that Wilmington University also had a doctoral program in prevention science.
Wow.
And when Thomas died, I knew immediately, like, his death was not going to be in vain. We knew what we kind of wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure I did this right. So I applied for the doctoral program. I cursed Thomas every semester that I was in it. But yes, I have a doctorate in prevention science.
So I've never heard that term, prevention science. So can you just tell a little bit about what that is and share kind of where that comes out of, what other branch of science comes out of?
Yeah, so it's really just looking at kind of taking that, like, in our situation, like that upstream approach. So like, yes, we know people are dying by suicide from depression. Okay, let's go up here. Like, what is causing the depression? Or, whatever else may be going on with them that is getting them to that crisis point. So it's really, in simplified terms, it's like taking a proactive approach rather than that reactive approach. And, like, I had to do a dissertation, and so mine was on, I always get the title wrong because it's
I won't know if you get it wrong.
Yeah, it's how male coaches perceive their role and capacity in supporting male student athletes' mental health.
Oh, wow.
So looking at
Ooh,
and this is where Kelly will come in. Like, this is so, like, exciting.
Hold that thought.
Yeah. But it's really looking at, like, what do people feel they need? What do they feel that they're lacking? kind of, are we putting too much focus on this area when really that's not even relevant at this point? We need to be looking here. So that just kind of sums it up.
Were you surprised at some of the conclusions that you came to during your thesis? Or did you kind of know the direction it was going to go? You just had to get supporting information?
I think a little bit of both.
Okay. Interesting.
So I had coaches who have been coaching like 40 plus years, and then I have some newer coaches.
Okay.
And you can see the shift in mindset, and even the older coaches acknowledge like that's just how it was back in the day.
Yeah.
And we're
back in the day.
Yeah, like I guess the younger coaches now, like they are taking a little bit different approach in terms of like recognizing how I coach this kid. I can't coach this kid. It's no longer a one size fits all.
Not a blanket or a paintbrush.
Not a blanket.
Yeah.
No. And then in general, throughout the program, different studies I came across, not relating even specifically to athletes, but just in general, is that transition period, whether it's, going from middle school to high school, whether it's, high school to college, if you're moving, friend groups change, just any type of big transition in life has been a significant factor in somebody's depression or even suicidal ideation.
Wow. Yeah, we're going to come back to that because I had another guest on that talked about the ACEs. Have you heard that term?
Yeah.
That was a new term for me. And once she said it, I'm like, duh.
Yeah,
but you didn't hear it, which is kind of, again, why you guys are here. So, hello, friend. How are you?
Great. Thank you.
Who are you?
So, okay. My name's Kelly Zimmerman.
We'll start with your name. That works.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll start there. So I work for the LIVEFORTHOMAS Foundation as the Mental Health Awareness Talk Coordinator. I will get back to that in a second. We gotta roll back to her being a Mimi. So
let's do it.
It's just too funny to me. So we took her grandchild and my 4-year-old. We are the same age.
Okay.
And so it's so neat.
Oh,
just
that's
to
a cool dynamic.
Yes. So she's there as grandma. I'm there as an old parent. And both of us, yes. So I have a senior in high school, a freshman, and a bonus baby, 4 years old.
Oh, bonus baby.
Yes,
I like that term.
He's such a little blessing. But he was shocker tall. And so Ezra, her grandson, and Harper, my son, you will see them everywhere. They are always with us. And it's just a fun dynamic. It makes just the life it makes it more of a family business,
So that's not foreign to me, and let me tell you why. So I'm the oldest of 8 siblings, split between a family, divorce. I have 4 and 4, okay? So yeah, you're right. It's like, oh my God.
Okay,
well, I thought that was a lot, right? And people are like, when I was growing up, how many brothers and sisters? I said 8. They were like, oh my gosh, like you did, right? I thought that was a big number. Well, I'm married into a family where my wife's stepfather is one passed, the 3rd oldest of, my numbers are off because one had passed, 16.
Oh, yeah.
The woman is your size. Now she's in heaven now, but that woman would command a room. But the age gap was like 40 years, 36 between the oldest and youngest. So that dynamic about aunts and grandmothers and sisters and uncles, it was everywhere. And when I met that family, and I'll just share a super cute experience at, I believe it was the father's funeral. It's supposed to be a very somber, reflective time. They all got up and started to give a very quick eulogy because there are all so many. And the oldest, which is one older than my father-in-law, said, I have something that my grandmother our mom told us on her deathbed that I just, I'm sorry, I got to tell you, I was her favorite. She told me, right? And that was the girl, like, oh my gosh. Well, each one of them in succession said, actually, she lied to you. I was her favorite. My diaphragm was hurting at a funeral, and there's both of these sides of me. You're like, is it even appropriate for me to laugh right now? But we just couldn't stop, and it was just incredible. So that's a really fun dynamic. And so the youngest, her name is Jenny too, which is my wife's name. Her children were basically born at a time when her oldest were having grandchildren. Yeah. So that's just an awesome family dynamic to have with Amy and her family.
We feel so young.
Yeah.
And
yes. You guys look young too.
But I'm too old to be a mom, and she's to be a new mom, I'll say that. Yeah. And she's too young to be a grandparent.
Yeah.
We just laugh about it.
Well, thanks for coming back to that, because obviously everything we talk about is started from family, right? So I'm glad we did that. But you didn't get off that easily. We didn't go back to who you are, Miss Kelly.
Yes. So I I first met Amy probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
By this time, so I also had a suicide loss in 2013.
13.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been some time. So this May will be 11 years. So it was my cousin Brian, who I was very close with.
Okay.
You know, this community, you don't want to be in it, but once you're in it, it is
Yeah.
very tight. It is very supportive. So somebody in my neighborhood had just lost somebody, so I reached out to that person. Hey, I've been there, been through that. You want to talk?
Wow.
And so that started that conversation. She met Amy. We all met for coffee, and that just kind of rolled into where we are today. And her foundation has just grown and grown. And so at first it was, hey, you want to be on my board? Hey, you want a position?
Yeah.
Hey, yes.
Be a part of this movement, and then it became a organization.
So I mean, it's so deeply rooted of how important this is to us, and everybody in our foundation.
Yeah.
Really. So it's just really.
I think some of that story is I keep coming back to this phrase where like and whatever version of faith or spirituality or universe that you guys believe in is all good, but I just keep coming back to the situation where like things are happening in my life that are it can't possibly be these series of coincidental events, and I just feel like your meeting the way that you guys met, you know, had to be that way, and unfortunately that was the plan that was out there, whether it was upstairs or the universe. And it's just tough because you obviously at some point ask why me. Everybody kind of has that version during this tough time, but it's just so great you ladies are sitting here today to hear that story, and I'm so glad we didn't talk about it ahead of time because it didn't really move me how you guys met, because anybody could have met in those circumstances and then bounced off each other and gone your own ways for no negative reason, but for whatever reason you guys clicked enough to say, let's talk about this. And then I love how it kind of turned to something else.
And
That's
definitely
special.
faith plays a significant
I didn't want to assume, but I was going to ask you later on.
Yeah,
So
sure does.
And
jumped right into that one. Awesome.
I can, without coming across arrogant or cocky, I can honestly say I've never asked why.
Okay.
So I found my son on a Sunday morning. I had actually went downstairs to the laundry room. I was getting towels out the dryer so I could take a shower and get ready for church when I found him. And throughout the course of the day, my pastor at the time was there, friends were there, family, law enforcement, whatever. And I made the declaration that day in my living room that although this should shake my foundation, it only makes it stronger. And that I had refused to give Satan a foothold in the death of my son.
Oh my God.
And I have continuously said, I don't understand God's plan, but I do trust it. And the why at this point, it doesn't matter. It's not going to bring him back. And even when I die and get to heaven, I'm not even going to ask God why then, because I'm just going to be so happy. One, that I'm in heaven with Jesus, and two, I'm reconnecting with my son. So it has been a constant, the why doesn't matter. It's what do we do from here, and just trusting God's plan. And as long as I stay on that, because a lot of times people talk to me too about like how strong I am and all these things, and we have a whole campaign about being strong. But what
I'm going to ask about that too.
Yeah.
That's an acronym.
Yes.
I'm very interested about that.
And what I tell people is what you're seeing, if you saw me like in the flesh, so to speak, like I would be a hot mess. Like Thomas with a mama's boy, that is my son.
Understandable.
What you're seeing is me walking in faith and just knowing that like it's out of my control, and I lean very much into that. And then so like just the different connections and all the people we have as part of our team essentially have been almost like God-given people, because they came into my life at the point that they needed and had the exact skill set that they needed. And so sometimes it was like, so our foundation's been going for almost, March 23rd will be 5 years. But it's really been this
2019 was 5 years ago.
Yes, I know. It's crazy.
My gosh.
You know, like just how time has flown. And sometimes we just want to hurry up and do things, but I've had to learn to wait. And when I do that, like he gives the people who need to be there, and you know, this is where we're at.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit because it came up the last 2 times that I've met with somebody too. One. So I have had a couple guests on already about this subject, and what we just talked about came up both times. So I was going to ask if it's okay to talk about that. And obviously people that listen will have different journeys. I think for someone that goes through a tragedy like this, if they have a version of faith, it can help guide them. I was really I'm curious about asking my former guest about what about people that don't have faith? I'm almost more concerned for that community because whether you agree or not, someone that has faith, they've got something to latch onto. They have community members inside. If they go regularly to a certain church or denomination, there's a community there. One of the things that faith brings is a community, and when you don't have that, I get really nervous that that's a situation that is going to be dealt with a little more detrimental as opposed not to. Not that you need faith in your life. I'm not trying to say that to anybody watching, although I have my opinion that you do, but it's okay. It's my show. I can say that. But what do you think about that? And knowing what you've been through, both of you, and you have different, obviously, levels of faith in your lives, whether you came together later on and it grew or went down. When I say that statement about it could be a little tougher for someone who doesn't have faith, does that resonate at all? What do you guys think with the way you guys have kind of lived your foundation the last couple of years in your lives? What do you think about that?
So what immediately comes to mind is connectedness is a protective factor
Okay.
for preventing suicide. And so if they don't have faith, what does their other support look like? What are they connected to? You know, if they have other connections and stuff, you know, that I hear where you're coming from, like, could something happen if they don't? You know, so as long as there is some person, some support, something that they can hold on to.
Yeah.
Because for some people too, I've seen the opposite happen where now they hate God and they question all of that.
It is a possible road.
You know, but then they're living for like their child. They're like, that's what keeps me going every day. So it's, you know, finding like, what is that thing? You know, but then we know there are people who really have no support.
Yeah.
And that is where it becomes concerning because anybody who has an immediate suicide loss, it increases their risk of suicide. You know, and because Thomas is my son, Michaela's brother, like we are automatically at an increase to die by suicide. You know, and so
risk, I guess.
You want to make sure that like, those people are being checked on. You know, around anniversaries, milestones, anything like that. To kind of just see where they're at, and we can get into this whole conversation too about what it looks like when checking in on people.
And that's kind of where I was going with it. And it's funny, I find myself thinking any of these major issues as I'm talking to folks could be their own episode or conversation, and certainly I'm welcome to do that. But I kind of was that's where I was going with it. We're not saying that if you have faith you're less or more likely to do or not.
Right.
There's obviously evidence on both sides of that. Or if something happens in the family, maybe self-harm, where it doesn't get to that level, whether faith is present, they would have an immediate outcome. But I was really speaking about those where it has happened. There's a loss. And then I cannot imagine, as I'm biased, what that would look like without the presence of something else. Fill in your blank there.
Right.
And then that's what so that community or system to rely on, because we're talking about a preventative subtopic, I don't even have I have a complete lack of knowledge for what a family or individual would do, or a parent that doesn't raise their family in a faith-based conversation, which is fine. No judgment. Again, I'm like beating myself up here, making sure I say that.
I can, because I have, my family is the opposite.
Okay.
Okay. So when
just a lack of it or an adverse to it?
A little bit of both.
Okay. Got it.
So, but I am not.
Okay.
So I feel terrible saying this, but I feel like I'm the best. I have healed the best.
Okay.
Because of my faith. And since Amy and the foundation, it has only grown and grown and grown, and it's gigantic now.
Yeah, it's some help.
It's a huge help. Like it's amazing. But for my family, when we lost Brian, so his parents did not grow up in the church. What I found, to answer your question, what I found is that our family turned to each other. They're from Key West. We all flew to Key West immediately. That's
a huge barrier to get across geographically.
It is, yeah. And we had people coming from Texas and Boston.
Oh, wow.
And we all flew down there to be with them. They were originally from New York, so they had a celebration in New York. We all got to New York. We're a tight family anyway, but it just brought us that much closer, which isn't always the case also. You find in a lot of death by suicide, there are a lot of divorces. You know, so the fact that my aunt and uncle, and they're older, they're in the 70s, they're still together and they got through that. They've been through so much, but I just look up to them. They've been married 50 plus years and been through it all. And it's like, why would I leave now? You know, can't go through anything else.
And then marriage itself, obviously, is at risk, provided
yes, that's what. Yes,
the kettle has too much boiling water in it, obviously.
Right.
And that's something that came up as well. So with both of you being in this field, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited to have you guys here, I would imagine a lot of your energy, focus, and even mission, which I did cheat, looked at your website, is on prevention.
Yes.
Not because that's your doctorate, but because that is the goal, right? It's you obviously have support systems if the event is already or the incident's already occurred, but the majority of work goes into prevention. One of the things that I heard really recently that I wanted you guys to comment on is that in a young person's development in the teenage years, as there's all these scheduled doctor's appointments about, all these different health versions, sexual health is a big part of a teenager's journey. Whether it's abstinence or not is none of my business, but it comes up at the doctor, it comes up with the parents. Physical health, being active, being fit as the kids call it now, right? But one of the things I really did not get exposed to until recently is that there's not always this other thing where, by the way, mental health is just as important. Now, I know the doctor goes over checklists. I have a teenager. They did ask certain questions, which in my head, I'm like, what kid's ever going to answer yes to them?
Right.
But they do try. This is no detriment to the medical field. It's not really a focus, though. Right. And I almost feel like there needs to be a focus on this second, third, or fourth part of the overall health of mental health. And have you seen that where you're dealing with your side of things? Have you seen a lack of focus? I'm kind of at a loss for words here. It seems silly saying it. A lack of focus on mental health as a prevention technique for suicide. Have you seen that?
I'll say that I think that it's improving, that people are having more conversations about it. But there's still also kind of systemically, what does that look like? Because sometimes it's like, oh, we want to do this, but then, with everything, there's red tape. Or as a clinician, like, I'm well aware that there are not enough therapists.
Yeah.
And so one of the big things that we hear too is, I called like 3, 4, 5 different therapists, and there's a 3 to 6 month wait list to get my kid in.
Oh my goodness.
And it's just so that's, I guess, one of the positive things that came out of COVID. It did make talking about mental health maybe a little more okay.
Surface level.
Yes. And then you saw an increase in people getting treatment.
And telehealth.
And telehealth, yes.
That's huge.
I thought that's where you were going.
Yeah.
But obviously it came up more because of the C word. But then telehealth is too. Is with all the doctors now, they're marketing that. Like telehealth's available, you know? Do the therapists also offer that too?
Yes. So I was primarily, I started out in person, then went to telehealth. And then when we had the option to go back in the office, almost my entire caseload wanted to stay telehealth. I will say that not all clients are appropriate for telehealth. So wanting to be mindful of that as well.
Is that a determination you would make as a clinician, or is that because of their general introvertedness that you can't get the whole story out over a virtual connection?
That would be for each clinician, like when they do the intake, to kind of assess, like, okay, what is the situation, what's going on,
the facts.
Yeah, and just determining, do I need to be able to like have complete eyes on this person? Because in telehealth sometimes too, you're not going to see if somebody's playing with their hands. You might not notice they're tapping their leg. Maybe
I
they
never
have
would have thought about that. The body language.
Yeah. So it does make things a little more challenging. So it's just being mindful and aware of like what the situation is and if telehealth truly is appropriate for that specific client.
I feel like the fact that it's 2025 as we're recording this right now, and that we can't specifically say that there's been massive improvement in mental health and awareness, that just sucks. I mean, when you just said out loud, I got this feeling all over my body about trying to communicate with a professional and then not being able to find somebody. Right. I know in the veteran community, that's a massive issue. And that's at all ages, is the ones that actually have the kahuntes to reach out get freaking stonewalled by scheduling. Right. But it just sucks that we're in this time now where everybody's talking about a little more, like you said, post C word. I call it AC,
Yeah.
BC and AC. But after COVID, more people are talking about mental health. How can there not be? And maybe statistically there are more resources, but they're not where they should be. How is that even possible?
I think it too. It's until you're in it, you don't. Not that you don't respect it, but you just don't know. And I guess I can say I was a health teacher, a phys ed teacher. I taught mental health. I taught about suicide. I really didn't know about suicide until experiencing the loss myself.
Oh my gosh!
And that right there showed me, wow, I have no idea. And it wasn't until after that suicide loss that now I'm watching my own kids like a hawk. I'm following my son around like, what do you mean you want to be in your room? The poor thing. and then I'm asking,
overcorrection.
And even my students, excuse me, I would ask 9 times a month, are you suicidal? Are you suicidal? What are you thinking?
That actual phrase?
That I would bring it up, which I think was good. That is you're supposed to.
Yeah.
You're supposed to ask specifically. That.
Okay.
But again, I would never have done that before having my own loss.
Yeah.
And so I think until you have either a child or somebody close to you that has a mental health issue, that it just doesn't. It's kind of, you can put that on the back burner. Like, yeah, we'll ask about it.
Yeah. So I saw something on the website, and I want to talk to you about it. And it was one of your sections talks about being at community events, and it shows a table next to like a little fall design or whatever. And I want to talk about that because something you just said kind of brought me to that point where this is a really sensitive topic. And what usually happens out of sensitivity is people just reject it. Not reject it out of disrespect, but they don't want to talk about it. So when you're at a public event at a table, it doesn't matter if you're giving away $5 bills. A lot of people are like, "Oh my Lord, I can't even go over there."
We see their faces.
and you're like, "Hey, awareness, come, hey," and you guys are really fun people. Just meeting you 20 minutes ago, but that probably doesn't matter because so many people are grabbing their kids like, "Oh my God, don't look over here, don't look over here." I guarantee it, and that's a shame because that's where the birthplace of something could happen. And not that walking away from your table means you're at a higher risk, but the problem is people are afraid to talk about it. And I always talk about in my professional career and life, I have a little coaching background, is that ignorance is the birthplace of fear because people fear what they don't understand. And then the fear is where the other stuff comes from. So obviously in your business, that's a major part of it. But let me ask you this. Do you feel like there is an opportunity to reach the level of awareness in a community that you're working towards? Or do you feel like it's just something where you have to get as much information as possible, knowing it's never going to be enough? That's a big question, but I'm just curious.
I think the only way it'll ever be enough is if we just see suicide stop.
Okay.
But I do think there can be a level reached where it's just getting out there more and more, that it's not so scary and so uncomfortable for people to talk about.
Yeah.
That it is just, the talks that we do, like we do it because we want people to be able to say the word suicide. We want kids to
Even
know.
that word.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even that word, my heart's like.
That's hard. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so
We have to
probably
practice it.
my inappropriateness, but after Thomas died, people who didn't know us, when they found out that I've had a son that passed away, and it's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. How did he die?" And I'm like, "Oh, it was suicide, or he took his own life." You could almost see like their face, like,
boom.
"Oh my God, I wish I wouldn't have asked." Or like,
Yeah, mortification.
Right,
They're
yes.
like, I just put my foot in my mouth.
but for me, I'm like, "No, let's talk about it."
Yes.
Talk more about it.
Yes,
Yes.
Let's talk about him. Let's talk about what
Yeah.
happened. But there's still very much, people are very uncomfortable. So we do as much as we can to make it okay to say the word suicide. To say, I'm not doing okay. All of that. And so I do think we can get to a level where people are talking more and you are seeing that shift. Unless suicide rates significantly decrease or stop altogether, like, I don't know if we'll ever reach that level.
No, ladies first, by all means.
I think it's important to focus on your own community first.
Yeah.
So I think us starting in Cecil and starting with the high schools, there's only 5 of them. And I feel like we have made some headway. We're not where we want to be yet, and now trickling into Hartford County, we can grow a little bit more. But it does give you a little bit of hope that, we're saving kids here.
Oh, yeah.
We're definitely saving some kids. And that's
So,
the ultimate goal.
I'm glad you said that. And so I baited you with that question because I wanted to say something else behind it. I think the fact that you ladies are involved in something where you can't actually see the mathematical goal being 0 and you still have this passion shows how strong you guys are. And we'll talk about your organization in a little bit, but there are so many careers where the driving force behind the 5th or 6th year is knowing that they're, a little bit of mathematical profit is a big part of that, right?
Right.
Plus 2%, plus 4%, whatever. You guys aren't in that type of mindset. It's help anybody we can, whether it's a family member prevent it or whether it's an individual walk away from that dark path. I just think you guys are so incredible because you don't have a necessarily quantifiable benefit to look back and say, hey, because of work we've done since 2019 when we lost Thomas, this is the mathematical change. I just think that's an incredible power that not a lot of people have. And it goes back to the fact that you guys met each other serendipitously, if you got to say that, right?
Sure.
I just think it's such a testament to how important this conversation is because of what we said, right? Someone says that they can't even say that word, right? And I just wanted to give you a moment of grace because that's so incredible. And the more that I'm learning about, no one's talking about it. Or even when I tell my friends and family what we're talking about, they're like, oh my God, you're doing what? You're talking about what? And I'm like, I know, right? And it's just important. But one thing my guest had brought up where he lost his son, Christian, he said, we're never going to know if we actually saved a life. But the fact that we're talking about it, we know it's going to happen. We know it. And that's just such an amazing thing. And I wanted to give you that quick moment of grace and dote on you a little bit because that's so awesome.
Well, and thank you for having us and opening that conversation.
Yeah.
We were so excited to be here just because we love to talk about it. And and we always say, like, it sounds terrible because it's suicide, but we really want to keep talking about it and keep saying it. And it keeps our loved ones alive. We get to talk about
Oh my
them,
gosh, yeah.
And
ooh, that gave me chills.
Yeah, it's just, it is that part of my healing journey has been just so quick the more I get to talk about them. So that it's really, really neat. And Amy and I talk all the time. Every time we are at a table or a talk, we have one conversation with somebody afterwards. And we're like, that's why we were here today. And that's all it takes.
That's it.
Like, we're just floating through and God's putting us right where he needs us at that time. And that's how we work.
I mean, your initial response when you and I communicated over text, Kelly, was, I think you said to me, and if this is wrong, correct me, you just said, hey, thanks for having a conversation about it. And I reread your text message like 10 times. I'm like, why would she say that? And then it kind of clicked like, dude, people don't want to talk about this shit.
No.
Like, it's not easy to talk about. Right. So in that moment, I was like, oh, yeah, that just made me push harder. I'm like, yeah, we got to do this. And then obviously when all of the flu was out of our system, it was time. So, oh my gosh, yeah, that's great. I want to circle back to something you had said about having conversations with schools. So have you been welcomed into and talked to the entire school up at Cecil yet?
So we have focused on the athletes because Thomas was an athlete.
Got it.
And a big part of this foundation is changing the face of suicide. So that's really important to us, that it is not just your depressed, what you would typically think of somebody who dies by suicide. Yeah. But it is that high achieving honor student, 2-sport athlete.
Which was Thomas, right?
Which was Thomas. So we have been welcomed into the sports teams. And so as my job as the coordinator is to work with the schools through the athletic directors, the coaches, invite us in, and we come for like a 15-20 minute. I bring a guest speaker with lived experience.
Okay.
We come in usually after a practice, and we're just opening the conversation. That's all it is. We're just telling our personal story because we're seeing more of these losses are at Thomas. Yeah. Brian was he was a D1 wrestler. He didn't look like
Yeah.
your typical suicide or what you would imagine.
No, but what you just said is that's perfect, because anybody who's not in the business or who's not a part of that community you don't want to be a part of, but you become. I love the way you phrased that. That's come up before in my guest too. If you're not in one of those two major organizations, when you say suicide, it is an immediate assumption that there was some sort of diagnosed
Sure.
or
Yep.
undiagnosed issue.
Yep.
And
Or what was that family like?
yeah, and that's another thing is, well, what's going on in that family, right? And that's just not fair. No one does that out of disrespect, but it's just,
No.
again, it's ignorance.
Right.
We just don't know. And I think I've been kind of resonating more with that idea that it could be, quick trigger warning here, that this is not a fearful conversation. It's an awareness conversation. It could be anybody.
Yeah.
And with Thomas's credentials, if I saw that on a resume, that kid's getting hired, right? And he was going to go into the Army, and the call to service, which is a huge decision. I understand that he got permission to leave school a little early,
He
right?
got to graduate early so that
yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And that's not the kid you would say he may be at a higher risk for self-harm or suicide. And I'm so glad you said that. That's the one thing that I've been personally shocked at with the journey that I've been in the last month. And it's a short journey, not like you ladies, is that it's not every child that is experiencing this is not the one you would think. And that kind of shocked me.
Right.
And I did the same thing you are with my kids.
The conversation we're having with these kids is just validating their feelings, that breakups are hard, that just by their age alone, they are at a higher risk. So that's why we're here. That's why we're talking to you. And to show us how strong you are and talk and reach out to somebody and that it's okay. You're not alone.
Yeah.
And just having those conversations is really important.
And Christian said something once too, that he said that these children begin to tell themselves lies, that they're not good enough, that their life is not worth enough, that their situation is too great to overcome. They'll never do this. They'll never do that. A breakup's a critical event. They'll never get another girlfriend, right? And it's just, again, it's a conversation we have to have as parents, because we don't know what's going on inside. Not every child can have that conversation like, hey, Mom, I got some stuff going on in my head I got to work out. It's kind of scaring me. Like, best case scenario, but my Lord, that's probably not how it goes most of the time.
Right. No, because I think, too, as parents, we want to fix things. We want to make everything okay for our kids.
Yeah, we do.
And so when our children are talking to us, sometimes we're not really hearing what they're saying. So that's part of
we're listening and not hearing.
Yeah, the education we provide too when we're talking to parents and to caregivers is your initial reaction is probably going to be fear-based. Like, oh my goodness, my kid's talking about this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or
in
even,
the hospital.
yeah. You know, and just listening to them, or even if it's a breakup, and not dismissing it, like, oh, you're just in middle school, you're just in high school, like, whatever, you'll get over it. And adults, we have, the wisdom of being older and living through things that maybe that is true. Like, they are going to, you'll get somebody else and not a big deal.
Yeah.
But in that moment, for that child, they can't hear that. It is, my boyfriend broke up with me, and that's the end of it. So really learning how to listen when your child is talking. Because on the flip side of that too, if you keep interrupting your child or you're trying to give solutions, they're not going to want to talk to you because you're not hearing them. And kids are very perceptive to when somebody is really listening to them.
Yeah.
So that's, I would say learn to listen, or encourage your child to talk to somebody else. Maybe they'll hear it better from best friend's parent or coach or youth leader or just anybody else, because sometimes we know home life does play a factor.
Well, and if I can interrupt you for a minute, in Thomas's case, you guys were so close, but that was the one thing. He didn't want to scare her. He didn't want to disappoint her. He never said a word. So that was she knew way too much about Thomas. I mean, for a mom-son relationship, very, very close from what I hear.
He was a mama's boy.
I'm a mama's boy, so I can relate.
That was the one thing that he never came to. And I can only just imagine that he wouldn't have wanted to hurt her or disappoint her. And I think of my cousin, before being in the suicide world, I thought it was the most selfish act you could ever make.
Yeah.
And that's, I kind of just left it at that.
That's a misconception, pretty popular
it
too.
Sure is. Yeah. And for Brian, he was 39. He was living in his younger brother's basement, working for his younger brother, who he once was very successful on Wall Street, and now had come down to this level in his mind. He thinks he's a burden to everybody, so he thinks he's doing everybody a favor. It takes a long time to get there to understand what was going on in his head, and then it just crushes him.
So I want to have a very in-depth conversation talking to parents and to maybe teenagers in a second, but let's lighten the mood a little bit. I just realized that you are both wearing merch. Yes.
Sure
so we've got two different types of colors here, styles, t-shirt. We've got a sweatshirt. So let's talk about the organization that led to these badass merch you're wearing. Is that even good grammar? These badass merches? Oh my God. I don't know. I'm in uncharted territory here, but let's talk about the organization itself. So we know why it started and when it started, but what do you guys do every day when you give this organization time of your day or space? Obviously, you're there more often, right? And what are we doing every day? And then lead me to the point where you want to get merch out to everybody.
What we do every day is always thinking like, what's next? Who else can we reach? What other areas need to be tapped into? It's planning. Like we have events planned pretty much throughout the year.
Okay.
It's doing this. It's speaking engagements. Going back to the school, we do have an MOU with Cecil County Public Schools, so we get to.
What is it? MOU?
Memorandum of Understanding.
I thought that's what it was actually.
So,
I should have said it first and then got so much credit. Doggone it.
What? You were there. You
yes,
had it.
I was in the space.
Yeah.
Got it.
So we've had conversations with them. They know what we do. In terms of our Den 22 program that we have, which I'll explain in just a second, we connect with CCPS on that as well.
Okay.
And they refer kids to Den 22, which is a safe space designed for adolescents and young adults.
Okay.
They can just come in and decompress. They can receive peer support. They can receive crisis intervention.
All for free.
All for free.
You said come in. There's a physical place to go?
We have a physical location. And
awesome.
We have some of the pictures up. We are in the process of doing kind of like a promo video because we also recognize too when you tell a kid, oh, go to Den 22, it's like, yeah, okay. But when you come in and see it, like we have a lounge area. We're having a game
chill
room
space.
Yes, it's we have an art station.
You got to have a gaming area. That'll bring
food,
people in.
Free food brings people
Food
in
and video games.
all the time.
Activities every week. Well, the interesting thing about the video games is initially we weren't going to have a game room.
Okay.
And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, which then led to multiple conversations with other parents.
Okay.
That their child stays friends with their bully for the sole purpose of online gaming because they don't have anybody else to game with. And so
I'm a gamer dad. I'm an 80s baby, so I grew up with games. That shocked me.
So we are creating this game room thanks to the help of Alan Myers Construction because they are sponsoring the game room and getting
shout out to Alan Myers Construction.
Thank you. And the idea behind it is for kids to still be able to do, what their age group does within a healthy space.
Age appropriate, healthy activity.
Yeah, and then they can make healthy connections to ideally then, game outside of Den 22, but that they don't feel like they have to stay bullied in order to do a normal adolescent activity. So we have that. We do support groups. We have support groups all throughout the week. We have a group for parents or parents, caregivers, if they have somebody who is struggling.
Yeah.
We do provide that because we know that can be exhausting for them too. So we have several different groups. They are on the website. And going back to CCPS, like we've gone in the schools and we've done presented like health classes and things like that.
Oh yeah, you're a health teacher, yeah.
We've had through the Ed Lally Foundation, we have the Power of Expression program. It's in all 5 of our high schools. We did it. 2022 was our first year with all 5 high schools, all the students, and then each year now we do it for all incoming freshmen so that they are getting it.
Wow.
And then we have...
Is that a seminar
so
style
it's an
event?
Assembly. Yep, it's a
assembly,
one-time assembly.
correct word. Yeah, okay.
That they do, and they incorporate music into it. What I love about it is the guys that from Ed Lally Foundation, it's the band Big Infinite. they have sports background, they have music background, like, so they kind of
They're amazing.
everybody.
You need to work on getting them.
Yeah.
Okay. Mental note.
Yes.
Let's get
will.
Ed Lally in.
I
As
will
I say
talk
mental,
to,
then I write it down.
Yeah.
I will talk to Jordan too and give him your contact information.
His foundation is in memory of his dad who died by suicide.
So another connection, with that there. And then, we have the first Hope Squad in the state of Maryland.
It's a Hope Squad.
So a Hope Squad is a national program,
Oh.
and it's in-school peer-to-peer support.
Okay.
So they have Hope Squad advisors who is usually like 2 or 3 like school personnel, people who are in the school, and they get trained as a Hope Squad advisor, and then there's a Hope Squad. And what I love about this is they send out kind of like maybe a survey application type process to all the students.
The student body.
If you are in crisis or you're going through something, who are the top 3 classmates that you would talk to? So it's essentially the
Peer-based.
students.
Yeah.
And then so
Shut
that
up.
whole
And
list
they're
comes
people.
in. Yeah.
That's so much more effective than Homecoming King.
Yeah, well, because you want to know, like, that.
Who would I go to?
Yeah, who you would go to. So that list then goes to, like, the Hope Squad advisors and other key school
Shut up.
personnel. And from there, the Hope Squad gets selected. And then the parents are notified and saying, hey, your child was selected for this. There's a parent, like,
What an
information
amazing
thing.
email to get.
Right.
And then essentially what it is, the Hope Squad, they're trained to pick up on things and to either be able to help their peer or take them to
Refer.
the Hope Squad advisor. Because let's be real, we know they're hearing things that adults were not
Yes.
hearing. Like we've talked about, kids have a different language than we have. And so we might not realize that a particular phrase might mean that, like, okay, we need to check on this kid. And same with social media. Like, they're seeing things that we're not seeing. So they are trained in how to recognize that and what to do about it. And we got the first Hope Squad in Northeast High School in Cecil County, and that's the school Thomas went to. So it's the first in the state of Maryland. And then this school year, we just got Rising Sun Elementary School, which is the first junior Hope Squad in the state of Maryland. So we're
Junior Hope.
Yeah, because they
huge.
have an elementary, middle, and high school.
And these are the first ones in the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
incredible,
I believe
guys.
it was,
Congratulations.
44 other states before it got to Maryland. So we are the first, and we're super excited about it. Like you said, we are all about prevention, all about everything that we can do.
And Live for Thomas pays for the
all
program.
these programs.
For the program. So it's not anywhere in the school budget. It is not. They don't
I'm going to
have-
ask a dumb question. Then why wouldn't everybody adopt this? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a free program that could help save lives.
Yeah.
And once they meet you guys,
it's time.
We do
it's
understand
scheduling,
the
there's-
curriculum
difference
stuff.
too. Yeah,
There's-
because it has to be school personnel.
Yeah.
Because of them being in the school.
They've got a lot on their plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
we
could argue
recognize,
immediately that there isn't a whole lot more important than this subject. The
Yeah.
more I
Correct.
begin to look at it, right?
But we want to be mindful of that. And as we're growing, we do know other schools do have plans to come on board with us. We've had conversations with
Okay.
the schools. It's just, rolling out that implementation piece of it. And, conversations are being had. We have a fantastic relationship with CCPS. So I do know that at some point additional schools are coming on board. And if sometimes we have to be told, okay, we need to slow down, like, we get it. We're over here.
It's a process.
Yes, and
sure.
our-
You're like, let's do it. And they're like,
this is our job.
red
This is
tape, red
what
tape,
we
red tape.
do.
Yeah.
And for the school, they have not only us,
Sure.
but they have all these other
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
And I think the more we've worked with CCPS, recognizing that, because I do believe
Okay.
from the outside, sometimes people are like, oh, why aren't they doing enough? Why aren't they? We know that they are doing
Yeah, because I'm like, why don't you do it? I'm like, oh yeah, there's a process.
Yeah, and that they very much support
Okay.
their students' mental health. And we have so for Thomas' 1-year anniversary, we dedicated a bench to him at the high school he went to.
At Northeast.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that.
and it has gotten back to us. Kids sit on the bench. It's a great conversation
that gave me
piece,
chills.
and it's just everything about opening these conversations.
So I just got moved by something, and it just like hit me like a ton of bricks, because my naivety in the subject matter prior to doing some research, and my research was not doctoral based, thesis based. It was just my own knowledge base. I wanted to get a little educated on the subject before I guessed like you on, so I didn't sound like a moron to my guests. And I've got some very comfortable people to tell me, Joe, you sound like a moron. So I had to make sure I wasn't. But I was focusing on parents as a source of prevention and community and then individuals as a source of prevention. You brought up a third area that I've never considered, and it's peers.
Yeah.
Now, when I say that out loud, I feel stupid saying it out loud, but again, the power and the opportunity for grace of a peer to be involved in that healing journey as a preventative concept. I mean, I'm over here with just straight goosebumps, because how could we not think about that? I've never even thought about that. And this isn't my field, but I've had a lot of conversations with people, even outside of, like, Joe, I can't believe you had that topic. And we're just great conversations.
Right.
We've never talked about peer influence, but it's a huge thing.
It's huge. So we have been doing these mental health awareness talks since
God, I'm
2021.
blown away right now. This is sick.
And we always start at Northeast High School, because that's where Thomas went, and that's where we had
As you should.
Post it, and then we spread out from there. So our first mental health talk started 2021 with the football team.
Okay.
And here we are going into our 4th year, and football has been one of the easiest ones to schedule in terms of the talks, because we go once a week because they have practice. We know they usually have games on Fridays. And so we've consistently been doing that.
Okay.
This past football season, we had one of the football players tell us, hey, I would like to share my story with my team. Yeah. And as long as we've been doing this, the different stories we've heard, there was something about this 17-year-old boy, who is 18 now. We do have permission to share his story. Talking to his teammate about what he went through.
Shut up.
Like,
what a strong young man.
Yes, and that's what
team.
this whole,
It was amazing.
that's the whole goal of this, is to get them talking. And then afterwards, we had a player come up to us and say, I didn't know he was going through that. I'm going through the same thing. And that's the whole thing, is getting them to talk, realize they're not alone.
Dude.
And, like, even the coaches, like, it took everybody a minute, almost kind of like catch their breath in their words. Like, it was just so moving and so powerful. Because it's one thing to hear adults talk, but it's a totally other thing when you have a teenage kid, a boy talking, young man talking about his struggles, and just to see, like, one of the players was like, dude, you, like, had me in tears. I didn't know you went through that. Like, and that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
We're not asking these teens to save each other. Like, that's a huge, like, responsibility to.
Great line in the sand to draw.
Yes. It's just having conversation and telling them, like, if you notice this, if your friend comes and tells you this, if your teammate, if your classmate, this is where you need to go with it. Like, we stress all the time, please do not keep it a secret.
Yeah.
And we also are very much on, we hear that, well, they might hate me. It is better to have your friend hate you and still be alive than keep that secret.
Where would the hate come from?
Because you told their secret.
Oh, the whistleblower, so to speak.
Right.
Like, if somebody
okay, no, that's an easy one. Okay, I got that. I misinterpreted what you were saying. Okay.
Yeah, so making sure they understand, like, any of these conversations we have, it's always about, we want you to talk, and here's how to handle it if it does come to you.
So I've personally had experience with a teammate, and then I'm not going to say too much, but I remember my family who has had the thoughts and some light actions that, thank God, were not, completed. They weren't successful.
Right.
In both scenarios, thank God. But in both cases, this is not about me. I'm just sharing experience. I was more scared to not say something and think, holy shit, I should have said something. Right. That fear broke me to a core over any fear of, they're going to not be okay if I say this. Yeah. And in both cases, it was a kind of what the F kind of thing afterwards, interaction. But I unapologetically said, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be that guy that said, oh, yeah, he said so-and-so, or she said so-and-so. And maybe that could be where parents are hearing this, like, oh my gosh, having their friends and their family, and just as community members too, even a group of families in a court, just talk about this, because they're most likely to see the signs quicker or earlier than we may, right? We may see the third or fourth version of their negative journey, but the peers might see the first one. Like, you have a very happy, happy-go-lucky person have a slight change in the way they're approaching something. They might see it at the grassroots level. I'm like taken back by the fact that this is the first time I realized that there's another major support group out there and it's peers.
Well,
I'm so glad you guys said that.
How much influence peers have on each other already.
Oh,
yeah,
positive
so,
or negative.
Exactly.
Whether it's bullying or a best friend that builds you up,
yeah.
to have both ends.
So if we can get in there, and that's one thing we love about being able to start the junior hope squad in elementary school, is like the earlier you can kind of plant those seeds and get it out to them and saying like you don't have to struggle and all of these things, like, and just keep building on that. And, you know, for kids to recognize it is okay, you know, to tell if your friend is considering suicide, if they've made a comment, if you know that they've done something. Because reality, it's happening, and it's happening way more than I think people realize. I mean, I can tell you, I probably would have never noticed as many suicides if I hadn't lost Thomas. But I feel like on a regular, whether it's in, you know, national news headlines or just, you know, Hartford, Cecil County. Somebody sent me a text message this morning about somebody from Delaware. Like, it's just a constant, it's there. And people just don't want to talk about it.
I need to look up the right term. There is a term for this, and it's not necessarily about this subject. It's about like the way your brain is. And I talked about it on one of my solo podcasts where I have twin siblings, and I'd never heard about twins. I was 10 years old when they were born. Just never came in my life. I knew what it was. If somebody said, "What is a twin?" I could define it. But the moment my mom shared with my family, we're having twins, every freaking talk show was about twins. I'm seeing it on magazines. The math equation. It's like, so-and-so are twins and they share apples. I'm like, it's everywhere. I think it's cognitive awareness or something, like it clicks, right? And that happened to me. As soon as I'm having these conversations, so-and-so did it. I'm seeing it on so-and-so. I mean, there's a Jelly Roll song out right now that is about this subject. And I didn't even, the song's been out for 3 months and it never clicked. And it's literally about suicide. They're talking about looking in the mirror, getting out of that room. There's some substance abuse laced in there into his message, but it's on freaking country music radio stations, which I listen to a lot. And I'm like, this is everywhere, but people don't know that until they've kind of seen the light, so to speak, because I don't know another way to describe it. But I think you have a good point. Once you're, and God forbid you're in that community, but once you're aware of this, it's everywhere. This is not some sort of, I knew somebody who knew somebody that knew somebody. If I were to poll, which I will not do, actually, you know what? I might actually. If I were to poll anonymously, I would imagine that a significant percent.
Oh, for sure.
And if you add in the ones that were not successful, that simply tried to harm themselves, I think we would have an overwhelming majority of people, and I wouldn't guess at a number, but it would be way over 50%.
Okay, well, statistically, one suicide impacts 135 people. So when you take all of that and then kind of just that ripple effect of what that looks like, and it's, you know, to a different degree, or if you're still impacted by it. Like, I've had conversations with people who they didn't know Thomas personally, but maybe their sibling did, and they were there when their sibling found out that Thomas died, or a friend or a coworker, and they talk about what that day was like for them, and they still remember it. And, you know, here we're going on 5.5 years later, you know, so just it's that constant, you know, people are impacted by it.
Okay, so I really want to ask about something I saw on the website. Tell me about Strong.
So
what does that mean?
Our What's Your Strong campaign.
Let me help you.
Oh, we have a live model today.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. So we broke down
Take
the word
one step
strong
forward so I know the camera can see it.
There we go.
Into the S is
Strong.
stop the stigma, T is talk to someone, R is reach out, O is one day at a time, N is not alone, and G is get help.
Awesome.
And
She knows her stuff.
that was pretty awesome.
She's no
but
joke.
we came up with this campaign because the word strong, I know people intend for it to be like a positive thing, but it does have negative connotation to it. Like, as a clinician, I can't tell you the amount of clients that I've had that we have had to work through that. You know, I'm the second out
As
of,
in a lack of strength to be weak?
in terms of being labeled, oh, you're so strong.
Okay.
And then, like, well, what happens when I can't be that. Like, I feel like I always have to be strong.
Okay.
And I'm the second
As a
out of
pressure.
5 children.
Okay.
And that was my label. Like, I was the strong one.
Okay.
And it does become a barrier to saying, like, I am struggling. I need help. And it's almost like when the strong one falls apart, it changes the whole family dynamic. It changes the friend group. It changes all of that. So working with people in terms of, like, being strong does not mean keeping it in. There is strength in asking for help. And so our What's Your Strong campaign, when we say strong, like, this is what we mean. Like, that you're reaching out, you're getting help, you're letting other people support you. And our Billboard campaign, so it's a Billboard and a social media campaign.
Okay.
And we have different community members, family members. Really, they just come on, they tell us their story, and they share what's their strong, what has helped them. And we have the different billboards up. We've had veterans, we've had business owners, we've had Kelly, we've had college students, we've had one of our local mayors. And it's really just, we want it to be like real faces. I love that, yes, celebrities and athletes and stuff, like, that they're talking about their struggles. That's great. We also want to bring it to the community. Like,
the everyday,
the
everyday person.
Do you know how many? It was so. This is funny. I tell my husband that I'm going to be on a billboard, right? and then it's for suicide, and he's like, "Well, can you put Brian's picture?" I'm like, "It's not about Brian. It's about me." You know, and that was hard for him.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and then my kids going to school and the buses going back. I mean, the amount of stories, the amount of people that saw this billboard was kind of amazing. My kid, it is down now. It was up for like a full year.
Yeah.
So as much as they were like, "Oh my God, did your teacher say something to you?" Like, they're talking about, did they see it yet? Oh,
they're like,
so-and-so said something. And then it came down and they were devastated. They're like, "Oh, Mom, it's gone." You know, like,
you had your
so
little 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah. It was,
and it's, again, there used to be talking pieces.
Yeah.
And really just getting people talking.
As a male, as a football coach, and I'm not a veteran, but I have a lot of veterans in my family. I can tell you that the R resonates with me because as a man, we are not taught that this stuff going on inside is shareable.
Right.
And I don't want to go down the whole masculinity thing because it's another episode.
Oh, yeah, we are huge on that too.
Yes. But there is a portion of that I do agree with, that it cannot be shunned to share. With your mom, not everybody's a mama's boy, not everybody has a mother. So there's got to be ways for young men who, again, in my research, I realized statistically are, unfortunately, the larger portion of demographic who are being affected by this. It has to be okay to talk to somebody. So when you said that, I got chills personally when you got to the R.
Well, then playing into that, which kind of talks about other things people can do. So when we say reach out, yes, we want people who are struggling to reach out. On the flip side of that, when you are in it and you are in your head, the idea of reaching out to somebody, like, it's not even there. Like, you are just, or the thoughts of, I don't want to reach out, I don't want to be a burden. All these things go through your head. And I can talk from experience. I've been there myself. I am more likely when my friends, when family, when people reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm just thinking about you. How are you doing?" I am more likely to say, "You know what, today I'm having a rough day." It doesn't necessarily have to be about Thomas. It could just be about whatever.
Okay.
Versus me picking up my phone and calling or texting somebody and saying, "Hey, I'm just having a rough day today." So, like, reach out to your friends, reach out to your family, reach out to the people around you, even your happy one. Yeah. And don't leave it at, "I'm okay, I'm fine."
Yeah.
You know, what does that mean? Because all three
I'm
of
fine.
us could have a different definition of "I'm fine, I'm okay."
Yeah.
Right. If I go back to when Thomas first died, I'm okay today. I managed to get from my bed to the couch. You know?
Yeah.
Which is a win at that point.
Yeah. So it's looking at, well, what does that mean? You know, and kind of keep playing in that conversation. You know, asking, what do you need? If they're like, "I don't know what I need," but maybe you know that they have a favorite coffee place or a favorite fast food, just whatever.
Oh, yeah.
sending them.
It's a comfortable spot.
Yeah.
I don't like the word safe space, but
Yeah.
it's a comfortable spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so just letting them know that you're thinking about them, because it is extremely difficult to reach out when you're in your own head.
And again, what I learned today is that there's also peers that you
Yes.
can help educate
Yes,
if you
yes.
recognize that. So I do want to ask you specifically, because Kelly's amazing. You and I got to be careful, although you're way more knowledgeable than me about giving advice, because we're not licensed or we're not clinicians,
Right.
but we do have a clinician sitting here. Is there a best practice? Because I think advice might not be a good word in your field. Is there a best practice that you'd like to share with the audience? And then who would that target person be that you're talking to?
So this really would be for anybody who is concerned about a friend, a loved one, coworker, whomever. If there's somebody that you're worried about, asking directly, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking of dying by suicide?
Those words particularly.
Those words particularly, because when you ask somebody, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about harming yourself? Again, it means different things. You know, if I was a suicidal person and you say, you know, are you thinking about hurting yourself? In my mind, I'm going, no, I'm not thinking about hurting myself. I'm not thinking about cutting. I'm not thinking about burning. I'm not thinking about any of those things. But you didn't ask me if I'm thinking about killing myself. So by saying, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? Those are very direct questions to get. You might not always get an honest, direct answer, but it eliminates any confusion about what you're asking. So you want to do that. This is more probably along the lines of a personal piece a little bit, in terms of Thomas and I were very close. And about 2 weeks before he passed away, somebody had reached out to me about a suicide comment he made. We did have conversation about it. We did safety plan and things. And in my head, it was always, all right, we're following the safety plan. If I'm home, he's safe.
Oh, wow.
And never in a million years would I have thought my son, one, I never thought he would kill himself. And two, I definitely didn't think he would do it while I was home. He did it while I was sleeping. And I think it became almost a sense of security for me that, like, okay, I'm home. He's safe. Everything's okay. So when I talk to parents, you know, letting them know, like, sometimes we can become our own worst enemies and obstacle, because it's, no, they would never do that. They would never do that. They would never do that. And the reality is they are doing that. And this is just my own personal experience and conversations I've had with other people who have lost their children.
Yeah.
You know, and I hear it even now in conversation with people, like, oh, my child would tell me, my child would tell me. And like Kelly said, Thomas and I were very close. I knew a lot of things. I knew my son had engaged in self-harm, but he never said, yes, I'm thinking about killing myself. So it's in terms of asking that direct question. It's wanting to, you know, as a parent or caregiver, stepping outside of yourself sometimes and saying, you know, is there somebody else that you can talk to? You know, am I in the way? Am I listening to my child? Making sure that I am giving you guys everything that is.
This is huge.
If somebody is that you are concerned about, and, you know, again, kind of depending on how they answer, saying, let's make this phone call together. Let's go see this person together.
Joint effort. Don't put it on them.
Don't put it on them. In the case of, like, adolescents and young adults, saying, hey, let's go to Den 22 together. You know, I'll go with you. I'll go to the support group with you. I'll go talk to this person, and you want to stay with them. Now, if somebody does tell you that they are suicidal, you do not want to leave them alone. You know, the one nice thing about cell phones nowadays, most people have them. Most people have them with them. You don't want to leave that person alone. So call, you know, you can call a loved one and say, hey, this is what's going on. I need somebody here. You can call mobile crisis. You can call or text 988. But you don't want to leave that person alone if they're telling you that they are suicidal.
I do want to get those resources from you and put them on the channel, on your description, so they have them. So we're almost out of time, and I want to ask some little light questions. A lot of different channels and podcasts have little gimmicks and stuff. Mine's just super cheesy because I'm a nerd and I'm a nerd dad, and my kids are nerds there. Sorry, kids. I would like to know, each of you, as short as you can make it, what are your superpowers? Kelly, I'll start with you because she just answered the question for me.
I would say I talk to angels.
Whoa, okay.
That's true, I do.
Okay, that's a hell of a superpower.
Yeah,
Way to set the bar kind of high.
I know. They just kind of have me floating around. And
Oh, that touched me when you said that. That was
Sprinkling
awesome. So you have
sprinkling little fairy dust everywhere.
set the bar high. Now that bar is set,
Yeah.
hard, tough act to follow. What's your superpower?
It's kind of in the same playing field in
Do it.
terms of my superpower would be just being a strong woman of God. Like, that is my superpower. It is everything. And yeah.
And
That's something
I
to
would
be proud
add
of.
that for her and for myself, once you can surrender those worries to a higher power, and again, not saying anybody has to do this.
Just
but
sharing.
My gosh, it is an amazing, amazing feeling when you truly feel that. You truly feel like the weight has been lifted off because he's gonna take care of everything.
Yeah. I feel like at any point I could write down 10 different things we could talk about for another 10 hours. So maybe I could have you ladies back on for a second podcast with some other ideas.
Yeah.
I've had so much fun today. And more importantly, when I say fun, there's a tough topic, but you guys are awesome people. We just need to have the conversation. And I think one of the reasons we're able to smile and have fun is that we've kind of gotten over that fear of talking about it. That's your profession. And me just kind of breaking that barrier mentally myself. But I'm going to put their contact information down. Please reach out, talk to them if you want to donate to help fund these projects, or if you want to volunteer and be a part of them. I am sure there's
Buy
a
some
phone number
merch.
willing to look at this. See? Yeah, we need to get
It's
some
natural.
merch. Maybe next time you can bring me a hat. I'm a hat guy. If you have
Okay.
hats, I would
Yeah.
love to have a hat.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, listen, you are now connected to the web with two B's. That's my last
Yay.
name. I'm very excited to have you guys here. I hope you enjoyed this
you.
episode. I'll probably be posting it about a week or two after we visited. So again, happy birthday, Mom. And I can't wait to release you guys to the public and really tell your story. And I want to continue this conversation because I think it needs to be had. So thank you both. You're amazing
Thank you.
people.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for being here today and talking about it and keeping that journey going. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk again, folks. Thanks for hanging around for this. Hope you enjoyed it.